Call this meeting of the Carroll City Community School District School Board to order at 5:38. Roll call, please.
President Kubrick.
Here.
Vice President Mack.
Here.
Board Member Dr. Strode.
Here.
Board Member Fox. Here. Board Member Yeager. Yes.
Move on to the reading of the district mission and vision statement.
Our mission to challenge all students to achieve their full potential through engaging, responsive educational experiences that inspire innovation, critical thinking, and collaboration. Our vision, development learners who are competent, compassionate, and problems.
Okay, we will take a motion for amendment or approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I'll second.
And probably moved and seconded. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'd like to welcome all our visitors. This is the time for public comment. First public comment will be Nancy Westfield.
Thanks. I hope I'm not going to say something that you've already heard. I missed a lot of your previous meeting. Two things. One is that I would like to encourage you to talk with a few local realtors who are seeing families selling properties, moving to other places. Maybe ask them, where are they going? And ask them, why are they going? I hear you might be surprised about some of that. Also, I have previously understood that there's a feeling among some of you that there isn't an appetite for a bond issue right now. But you guys are people who know what the situation is intimately. And I would challenge you and say that it's your duty and your calling to make sure that the people who have doubts and who have questions, that they understand the necessity of moving forward with a bond issue and getting our kids what we and our community what we deserve. Thanks.
Next on our list is Scott Jensen.
Good evening, I'm Scott Jensen. I'm the juvenile court officer for Floyd County. I've been in that role for 23 years. I wanted to stop and just address the board to just throw out some positive comments and praise. This has been a spectacular year working with Mr. Miller, Ms. Johnson, and Mr. Taylor. I don't deal with elementary schools, thank goodness, we don't want that. I guess I would if you were rural, but we don't want the elementary kids. But it's just been very proactive this year. They've all been doing a great job with communication. I believe we've had a good partnership set up this year. And it's just been really nice to see after we've had some challenging years. And this year, and I think going forward, we're in a really good place. My supervisor, Ashley Neuendorf, and another coworker who helps out in Floyd County once in a while, Julia Byerly. Everybody has had very positive comments to say after we've had meetings with the school staff, dealing with teachers, proactively, making sure we're on the same page, why we're holding those kids accountable, and at the same time, giving them the best education and educational opportunity. So I come to these meetings when there's issues to complain, so it's only right that I come to say the positives at the same time. So very glad with the direction we're going, and just want to encourage Mr. Miller and the others to keep up the good work, and we look forward to some more positive interactions. So thank you.
I'll now ask anybody else in the room if there's any further public comment.
I think save your guys' comments for later.
You're gonna-
Comments
from the
minutes one time.
We'll do that with the FEH.
Okay.
Agenda. Is there any other public comment? We can move on to approval or amendment of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We can now move on to the administrator and director and superintendent.
I'm going to be extremely brief tonight. I would encourage you to go out and to cheer on our kids this summer, enjoying softball and baseball. And really, that's kind of what's happening for kids right now. We have the fair, of course, coming up in a few weeks or about a month, I guess, but real brief tonight, so that's all I have.
Committee reports. Don't believe anybody went policy had a couple.
No policy, we just discussed just a name change to one of the policies, and so I did put that on as a first reading. That was the only issue, just updating our 504 coordinator to Mrs. Johnson. So,
Now move on to new business action items. 9A, adult lunch price increase for fiscal year 26.
Just need a motion to approve that. I'll make a motion that we approve the adult lunch price increase for fiscal year 26.
I'll see.
It's been probably moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we can proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Second item B. SPF 25.
So this agreement, last year EMC changed around the state for wind and hail damage, how we did that. And so we bought a separate policy last year. This year, Jasper has pooled, gone into a pool system. And so we will be getting better coverage for less money by doing this. So I recommend that the board approve our participation in this pool. So
I'll make a motion to participate in the storm protection fund. As followed by Iowa Code Chapter 28 as presented.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we can proceed to vote. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion will carry. New business item C, FEH concepts for high school improvement with cost analysis and recommendation from the high school improvement committee. This.
Jump to a whip to us. First of all, I want to thank you folks for what you do. I've been there for 2 terms. I know it's a tough job, but it's a real contribution to the community. So I appreciate your efforts. We met as a committee and listened to our architect lay out the options to the community for this improvement to the school. And they did a fine job. We got the options laid out to us today. We got the cost figures thrown in. And after consideration, a lot of discussion and back and forth, it was unanimous on our part that we go with option 2. We think that that presents the best result for our children. As I said personally, at 73 years old, my dad's generation built this school, and it was the state-of-the-art school in Northern Iowa at the time. And we went through it and enjoyed the benefits of being in a state-of-the-art school. My presumption, when talking with the architect and the superintendent, is what you're going to do is the high school for the next 40 or 50 years. So we're talking about the next 2 or 3 generations of our kids and our grandkids going through the product that you produce and the community produces. And so it's our legacy. It's my legacy. It's probably, in terms of projects that I see that I'm involved in, the top and most important project because it's the future of our community at stake. So you want to add anything, John?
Oh, real spot on. Just what they presented. I mean, they're both good options. They're both an improvement, but one of them stands out far above the other one is a long-term solution to provide the best opportunity for our students, as Earl said, but also for our staff. And if we try to look at who we are, as I feel as a business, it's going to provide, again, that best opportunity for students and staff, not for 10 years, but for 40, 50, 60 years. So again, option 2, as a committee, everybody absolutely agreed that's really the best fit, long term. So, thank you for your work.
Thank you. Dr. Burnett, did you want to start this out, or I can bring the board up to date if you like, or if you have anything you'd like to start with?
Well, I would just like to thank the team that came together. I know it was a lot of heavy lifting for the committee that came together, multiple meetings, a lot of good discussions. And really, we got to that point where we looked at both options and had great discussions and talked about phase one, phase two, but the committee really came up with option two, being the direction that they wanted to go. And so I really want to thank them for their work on that. And I think that, to me personally, as I talk to teachers and get out into classrooms, and we've met with teachers as part of this process, phase two really does do the most to transform the experience for kids every single day. And we give kids a much better music space as part of phase two. As option two, we give kids much better music space as part of option two. So I really believe that we're doing a lot of things to really help kids have a better day-to-day experience in option two. And so that was also my recommendation after meeting with teachers and committee members.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, board, for having us again. My team and I really appreciate working with you and the dedicated individuals that you've had serving on your staff and the committees that we have worked with on this. I want to bring you up to date a little bit today. We've had some allusions to some of the options and things, but I want to make sure that you all understand those options and the costs associated with them so that you can continue to do your work and decide what is the best option for the district going forward. We did study two main options for improvements to the building. Option one, both options had two phases. Option one was a basic option that was really bringing the building up to code level, ADA compliance level, that type of a scenario where we get at least up to the level of code that's required for today, and then bring in as many of the additional features as we can. Those are things like aesthetics, proximities of spaces to each other, functionality of the building, that type of thing. So there were two phases there. The first phase of option one dealt with a variety of levels of renovation in the building. If we could bring up option one, phase one, for a quick review here. There was no new build space on option number one. It was all renovation based. Really, the only addition was an elevator addition onto the south side of the existing gymnasium for ADA accessibility concerns related to the balcony and the lower level locker rooms. But you can see here on the plan, it's colored in a way that also demonstrates the amount of renovation that would be done in each space, along with the cost of that renovation in each space. So there are 2 blocks that are gray and there are 3 blocks that are orange, going from light to dark in both cases. Light gray and gray are the lowest level of renovation and cost. Going into the mid-range and the high range of the orange, those are the higher level of renovation and the higher cost. So what you can see here is, 95% of the building under option one is touched in some way. And that was very important to us, along with you all and the administration, to touch as many individuals that use this space, not only the kids, but the staff too, and give them something under this project. It could be just as simple as some finish renovations, that is carpeting and painting and new ceiling lighting, that kind of thing. The darker areas of orange are representing more complete renovations, moving walls around, changing the location of spaces, rebuilding those spaces, that type of thing. We have been over this plan with, and most of you have seen some of it, of course, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Suffice it to say that the idea and concept here is to use what we have in a better way and upgrade it so that it can be more useful. Option one, phase two then goes on to add some space to the building because there is some need for additional space. And the phasing has to do with the amount of financing that you have available for projects. So we're trying to keep phase ones in the area that you can finance, and then a phase two maybe at a later date, different type of financing option or something, so that it wouldn't be the first part of a project that would be completed. Phase two of option one here is an addition. All the renovation has been done, so that's the gray area in this plan. All the orange area is new construction. And in this plan, we are adding a 500-seat auditorium with accessory spaces like a scene shop, stage with fly area, mechanical space, storage space, that type of thing, and a music complex, completely new space. So that would be practice facilities for all, along with choir, band, excuse me, and vocal music. So those are all incorporated into an addition here. That would be a second phase on option number 1. If we go to option 2, phase 1, this option was conceived as a higher level of renovation and addition that would better meet the needs that we heard throughout the process of interviewing the staff, the administration, the board, some community members, people on the committee that we just convened. So what you're seeing here is a mix of renovation and additions. Primary difference here, as you can see, is that the 400 circle and the 600 circle, which is the small circle, which is where music is, and the medium-sized circle, which is a classroom building, have been removed and replaced with additions in their place. So where the 400 circle was, we have a small addition for a student services concept, which would bring all the student service issues together, administration, nurse, guidance, all in the same complex. In doing that, we can renovate some of the existing spaces like the current nurses space and guidance into other functions. So that brings all of the student services into one area at the main entrance of the building. We also did a secure entrance on both of these options. I should have mentioned that before. And then the main addition takes the place of the medium-sized circle building on the 600 circle. And that encompasses a new commons and kitchen area, along with that music complex that we talked about before. Some dedicated to middle school, most to high school, and also moves the FCS facilities, middle school and high school together into the center of the building and to the CTE wing, which it seemed to be associated with. In doing that, we can reallocate some of the other spaces in the rest of the building. For example, where we're sitting here, this could all be renovated into classroom and other use space. So that's option 2, phase 1. And then we go on to option 2, phase 2. That is similar to phase 2 of option 1 in that it would add that auditorium with its support spaces. It also adds a little classroom wing that connects the new commons to the existing high school north building, which is where we are now. It relocates the connection between those two buildings. It also provides a covered walkway from the new addition where the kitchen is directly to the middle school, so that right now where the kitchen is located, the employees and the food have to go all the way around the building through the high school into the middle school to its serving location. This would put that much closer and address that need. So those are the 2 options and the 2 phases of each option. And I'm going to show you the cost of those in just a minute. One of the other things that we did here was we studied the building at North Grand, if you could bring up that plan. And we said either as a completely separate option to this project or as an addition to this project, there were some things that we could do to reorganize and renovate space there that might be beneficial to the district. And the benefit really is an athletic multi-purpose type space. And so we've done that by utilizing the old pool space. And so that's on the bottom right-hand side of this plan in orange. That becomes a multi-purpose space for not only basketball and volleyball, but it also has a batting cage, space for simulators for off-season sports and that type of thing. Then we renovate the existing locker room area off the swimming pool into accessible locker rooms and restrooms. And then we can also renovate the space off the existing gym into a multipurpose space with a turf area, fitness equipment, whatever it may be that is needed by the athletic department. So again, when we look at the costs, this has been assumed to be a set aside project or one that you can consider doing now, later, if you want to, not at all, if you want to. But it is a facility that you have and own. It is a facility that you use and maintain. So we did look at it as an option to do something else in, should you want to develop it. Okay, so those are the plan options that we look at. Does anybody have any questions before I go on to the costs about those options as you've seen them presented? Not that, okay. Let's go ahead and look at what we think the costs are going to be for these spaces. So again, option one is going to be the least costly of the two options, primarily because it doesn't add new space and it deals with renovation. A couple of comments about cost estimating. At this point, we call this a cost opinion, not a cost estimate. There's a couple reasons for that. Most people consider an estimate to be something along the lines that a contractor would provide when they're actually doing a takeoff type of estimate, which means they're actually counting doors and windows and how much carpet and that kind of thing that we would have. And they give you a number and that's the cost of the project. That is not what this type of an estimate is for. This is a budgeting type estimate that uses costs based on square foot. So what we're saying is, if we renovate so much square footage at a certain dollar amount, that would encompass most of the renovations that would be done in that area. So please understand, this is more of a budgeting way of estimating. And that is because we are not to the level of complete design of a project yet. This is a concept of a project right now in order to get us enough information and you enough information, hopefully, to understand that we have a viable project here that can meet your needs and your budget, okay? So what I've done here is I have prepared this cost opinion based on square footage costs. Remember when I was talking about the plans, we showed those colors and those representing different levels of renovation and different cost levels. So those cost levels are represented here. This is actually a summary. It's not the full estimate that I did. Because I don't think that's necessary for you all to see, but the summary shows how those came out. But the low level of renovation, say carpeting and painting and ceilings, you know, that might have been figured at $100 or $150 a square foot, where a high-end new construction, like the auditorium in this case, may have been figured at about $650 a square foot to include everything that we need there. So that's kind of the range of figures that are used and the type of renovation and reconstruction that we're talking about. So on option number one, phase one, should we do all of that renovation work that was shown? We're looking at a construction cost opinion of almost $25 million, $24.8 million. A distinction here is construction cost versus the next line shows soft cost. Construction cost deals with the hard cost that it would actually cost to build something. So something that actually a contractor would be responsible for and building of something. Soft cost is all the other costs that go toward developing that project, like our fees, like furnishing the space once it's done, like inspections and permits and things like that, that are not directly related to a hard cost. So we have line items for both construction costs, soft costs. We have a subtotal there. The soft costs around $2 million, bringing the total for that renovation to just under $27 million. Because the study that was done on the HVAC work wasn't done by us and it was done by someone else, and it was not a completely real down and dirty type of a situation. They basically described some of the work, but not all the work that would be needed. For example, the study says a lot about the HVAC needs, but not much about plumbing and electrical. So that study actually showed about $2.8 million worth of work. The board has set aside $4 million, and I think that was understood that there were some things that were left out of that. and or just costs rising and, you know, that type of thing. So very good idea on your part. But what I did to account for that here was I did my own estimate of what I thought the HVAC electrical plumbing was. And then I backed the $4 million out as a credit so that I didn't include it twice, okay? So the subtotal of the construction cost, the actual construction cost to build it is 27 million. If you take the 4 million that we've already committed to that out, it's a $22.9 million project, okay? Any questions on the concept of the estimating or how I'm doing that? We understand that? Okay. Moving on to option 1, phase 2, if you could scroll up a little bit. The hard cost there, 18.9 million. Soft cost 1.3, about 20.3 million to add the auditorium and the music complex under phase 2 of option 1, okay? You notice there that the credits and rebates are much less because we've already used that 4 million in phase 1, so we can't use it here. Some of the other credits, you get some credit from the utility company for going through the new construction rebate program because you're gonna be more efficient and use higher efficiency. So you get some money back. That is a check after the project is all finished. They have to come and verify it, but then you do get money back for that. That's a mandated program by the state that the utilities have to offer. So there is actual money coming back to you from that. It's modest, but it's there, so I have shown it. So on that new construction, I estimated about $10,000 would come back to you. So we've got about a $20.3 million project there. So if you add those two together, can't remember the math, 47 million-ish for option 1 in total, phase 1 and phase 2. That might be too much. I can't remember what the first one was. Could you scroll back up for me for a minute? There you go, 23 million roughly and 20 million, so $43 million, okay? Now, if we go to option 2, phase 1, construction costs 35.7 million, 2.5 in soft costs, roughly $38 million project. Take off the 4 million, you're at 34.2. And phase 2, again, which is the auditorium and classroom addition to that, 15.7, 1.25 in soft, $16.9 million for that building, or that phase. So that's what, 34 and 17. What is that? 40, yeah, 50. Okay, thank you for the help on the math. So that is the cost of those two options. I believe I have North Grand on here. If you scroll up a little bit more, just for your information, down, sorry. There we are. North Grand, there's a lot of variation here because to the level of construction that we actually do. I put this in as if we were doing the level of construction like we're doing at the high school, but much of this could be done on your own for a little bit less money and that kind of thing if you wanted to develop North Grand. So it's roughly $3 million cost according to my estimating, but I think there's probably some significant savings you could have there should you want to do that. So we've got two options, obviously big numbers here. One of the important things that you all asked me to do was to try to get an option that might be around $15 to $20 million, and one that might be just under what the previous bond referendum number was at. I was able to do that by doing some reductions on these projects, so taking out some things, and I have a little summary of that I can show you. You may wish to do these, you may not wish to do these, but I did want to show that they were viable options as things that could be not done now, done later, not done at all, that type of thing. So this is what I'm calling some cost savings on each one of those options. On option number 1, phase 1, we could eliminate doing the work in the existing gymnasium and stage area and balcony area. You could do some of that work much simpler on your own if it was just painting and refinishing floors and really make that gym look a lot nicer without a lot of construction dollars. This is figured as if we were doing a full level of renovation, kind of a light to medium renovation there. So that's where that 2.9 figure comes from. The majority of the cost is in the renovation of the locker rooms, because there's a lot of plumbing work to do in there. The walls to be moved around, finishes, HVAC, lighting, some ADA work, that kind of thing. That's why that number looks probably a little higher than you would expect, for a gymnasium. There's also some associated costs with that if we didn't replace the bleachers. I take the bleachers out separately because that skews the square foot cost high, because it's a relatively small area at a high cost. So I take that out separately, but that would be associated with this. So if we didn't do new bleachers, that's $112,000. If we didn't do the elevator addition and the enclosed walkway, the enclosed walkway, remember, was to attach the elevator to the lower level locker rooms, which are not accessible right now. So the elevator addition would have connected the balcony through the elevator to the lower level, to those lower level locker rooms. If we did not do that, including the enclosed walkway, that's $587,000 savings. If we didn't replace the greenhouse, that's $120,000 in my estimate. I also estimated $350,000 in there to do a window and door replacement on the exterior of the building, the high school building. If we didn't do that. And then when you take these out, we also have to take out the contingencies and the fees that were associated with those as well. So I took those out. Some of these items you could do on your own at a different date. You could phase them over time. Like window projects, many districts will do that over a couple of years and do a certain amount of them each year, that type of thing. So this does not mean that you wouldn't necessarily do these. It just means it's a way to bring that cost number down in this option, should you want to do that. If we do that, we have around $5 million in savings. The number from the estimate was 22.9 million. If we apply the savings to that, we're at a $17.9 million project on option number 1. Phase 1. If we look at phase 2 of option number 1, I did the same thing there. So if we reduce the auditorium lobby and media center space, I had a fairly extensive lobby and media center space on this option. So I just reduced it by 500 square feet. Still works, just a little bit smaller. We could save $200,000 there. If we reduce the auditorium from a 500 seat to a 400 seat auditorium, we would save the space that those seats go in and the cost of the seats themselves. Seats are relatively expensive, so there's 2 line items there. Right around $500,000 to just go from 500 to 400 seats. If we didn't build the scene shop, which is one of the amenities on the auditorium and the stage, we could save about $425,000. And then you have some contingency fees that can come off with those if we didn't do them. There's about $1.3 million more in savings on phase 2 of option 1. Making that total about $19 million instead of the 20.3 that we got. So if you were to do all those, we add the 18 and the 19, help me with the math, $37 million instead of the 40 something that it was. Same analysis on phase 1 of option 2. Same type of thing. Now here, if we were to eliminate that student services addition onto the front of the building that we were talking about, that's about $800,000 savings. If we eliminated just the middle school band room from the new music complex, and we didn't do that part, there's about $800,000 there. Again, if we didn't do all the work in the existing gym and locker rooms and things, 2.9, and the bleachers, elevator addition and walkway again, greenhouse again. Scroll down for me, please. Those exterior doors and windows we talked about, contingencies, design fees. There's about $7 million in savings on option 2, phase 1, for a new total of $27.3 million. I believe the figure that you were at for the last bond referendum was $28 million. Now understand, and this was a point that was brought up by the committee, that's not the same work that was done for the 28 million under the last plan. This is a different amount of scope of work, but the overall figure is under what you asked for the bond referendum last time. Okay?
And Matt, if I could jump in quick, that
Yeah.
the middle school band, they'd still have a new place to play because you know, when you have that full ensemble come together for high school, they don't take the full day. They're in there for a couple of periods, maybe with the different ensemble groups. Then they're doing lessons. It's kind of our current structure. So middle school kids could still use that new space. We just wouldn't need a separate space for middle school.
Right.
With that reduction. And so also as we think about orchestra and choir, could we also possibly save space there? We could think about that too. It's a
Right.
possible savings.
And that's a good point here. All of these options are viable. We have talked with Dr. Burnite about them, so there are other ways to accomplish what we're doing in the space that we have. These were the larger numbers of all the options that we had, so that we could get that money out as quickly as we could. There are undoubtedly other options. And again, you don't have to do all these, any of them, all of them, just options. Also, they're not in any priority order. They're just a list, so you can determine that. Option 2, phase 2, same consideration here. We could save roughly 1.57 million, bringing that cost to phase 2 for the auditorium down to 15.3 million. So there we're at 27 and 15, it's that 30, 42, 43? 43 million for option 2, everything. I also did it for North Grand, and that's the next one here, saving about 283,000 off the 3 million is 2.77. Okay, so that is the costs as we see them of the project now, of the concept of the projects that we're presenting, or the options that we're presenting. And it has some cost saving measures in there, should the board be interested in it. I will note that these were considered by the committee earlier today, and a lot of discussion on them. I think that the committee's outcome was they really didn't want to do any of them, but understood it may be necessary to do some of them for you all to get the financing to work and do what you need to do to get a project out of this. So they didn't really make any recommendation to that level, but they did stress, as you heard, they were in favor of option 2, as much of that as we can get done, and with whatever financing measures you have. One of the other, I think, important things that came from the committee last time was, and if you could bring up that analysis, Chris, of the building codes. This building hasn't had any significant work in the majority of the building for quite some time. And the way that the building code and ADA regulations work is they're constantly being changed and upgraded. So over that time, we have new codes and ADA regulations come in. One of the questions was asked of us, how much of the budget is being spent toward just bringing the building up to basic code level now? So we did a little bit of an analysis of that. This is not a perfect analysis. It takes a lot of interpretation and guesswork and that kind of thing. But we feel that it's a good exercise, and with our history and understanding of what we're doing, we did put this together for you to consider. So the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical improvements, you set aside $4 million for that. We looked at the study and determined that 70% of the work of that $4 million budget is going to go toward building improvements that raise to code level or ADA, that type of thing. So 70% or 2.388 million of the 4 million alone just goes to raise the level of that building up to code level. We did the same thing with accessibility, little bit different rules there. I'm just going to talk generally because there's some specific things, but generally speaking, when you're dealing with ADA, whenever you touch an area, primary use area, you have to bring the route to that area, from that area out of the building, also up to code with it. So we estimated, and that rule is 20% of that budget needs to be allotted toward the ADA upgrades. We estimate that about 17% of the 20% that you would have to set aside for ADA upgrades in option number 1 would be used toward ADA upgrades alone. Okay, just to get to current ADA regulation level. Building code compliance is a little bit different than the HVAC. That's more like door opening sizes, number of exits, that type of thing, dead end corridors, which you've heard me talk about. We estimated that about 30% of the $22.8 million budget would go toward building code upgrades for a total of $13.15 million of the $22.9 million spent alone on upgrades. That represents 57% of the budget under option one, being used for just code upgrades. 43% then is used for all the other things that everyone has told us they have issues or deficiencies, like proximities of spaces, aesthetic upgrades, those type of things. If we do the same analysis on option number two, which you see underneath there, we estimated the percentages are lower here because remember in option two, we're actually eliminate two of the circles, which are old buildings. So we get rid of a lot of the upgrades that we would have to make by doing that. That brings the percentage of the budget that is being allowed for those down. So you see here, we've estimated about 55% of the budget for the HVAC, 13% for ADA, and 24% for code compliance. Total of 37% of the $34 million being used to just bring the existing construction up to building an ADA code, leaving 63% for the rest of those items. Okay? Questions about that? Okay.
Do you have any idea on that last bond issue that we did? What that, this kind of analysis would have been?
I really don't. We weren't involved in that one. So, and it wasn't any of the information that I saw.
What do you mean? What do you mean? It wasn't in the.
No, it wasn't in any. We did have access to the last two referendum information. It just wasn't there. So our purpose today is to give you this information so you can have your own discussions. We're here to answer questions and help go through that discussion if you wish. Our recommendation as your architect and design team is that option one really is not viable for the district. It does not meet the needs that have been expressed to us. Most of those being the things that we talked about with the administration, and teachers about how they administer the educational process, proximities of things, outdatedness of things, that type of thing. It is there for your consideration, but we do not think that is the one that really addresses your needs in the best way. And we do understand that option two is more expensive. But we think it addresses those needs better under the circumstances. So that's our recommendation. You heard from the committee, really dedicated committee there that did a lot of work. It wasn't easy work. It was difficult, and you heard their recommendation as well. So the three of us are here to answer questions. If you'd like to discuss or ask us any questions, and then I'll ask Dr. Knight if there's anything we missed or if you.
No, I think you covered it well, Matt. I think, talking to the teachers, option two really addresses their things that they brought forward as being critical for student success going forward. I thought the way Ralph phrased it about this could be the next 50 years, of classrooms. But I think that's a nice way to think of it, that this really would be long-term solutions, not a short-term. And then when you look at the amount of ADA and building code issues, that is significant. That these are very needed improvements.
Matt, could you speak a little bit about how option two addresses safety needs at the school?
Sure. Yep. So option one and two both address safety. For example, yeah. Would you bring up which plan would you like to see? Option two. Okay. Option two,
Yes,
phase
maybe
one.
speak to both like physical safety and then I guess how building codes even impacts.
Yep. So physical safety is really addressed in both options, primarily by that secure entrance that we talked about. We do have that in both options. And that's the one where you can lock things down when the school day is going on and people have to go through the office. Also the door and window replacement, which we indicated as an optional cost savings, addresses that a little bit too. There are a lot of exits and doors around the building that we can handle with cameras and, exit alarms and things like that that you don't have now. That's in both options. I think some of the safety concerns that aren't addressed, for example, in a circle, you can't see around the corner. And cameras can't either. So when the staff is there, you know, they can't really see what's going on, difficult for that. There is a camera system in the building, but again, there's lots of dead zones and spots. So when we straighten out corridors, make the plan a little bit more reasonable as far as that really adds to safety and security of people. Also, the ADA and building code upgrades, that is what those are for. That's what the building code is for, is the health, safety, and welfare of the occupant. So anything that's a building code upgrade is going to be related to health, safety, that kind of thing. Door hardware, clearances, access, all of those type of things are included. You get, obviously with new construction, we have to meet new building code anyway. With existing construction, there are some ways that we have to do it differently. It can be difficult to do that in existing construction, but they can be done. So that's kind of generally safety and security there.
You did kind of talk about doors, that you compare both current situation and option 1 to option 2, and you just count exterior doors. Every time there's an exterior door, there's a bit of vulnerability as far as safety. And so if you count exterior doors from where we are right now, to where option 1 would still be, and you compare that to option 2, there's significantly less exterior doors.
Other questions from the board or clarifications or anything?
I guess one of the questions I have is what do you think the timeline is for completion for construction?
Sure. Yeah, good question. I haven't specifically looked into an actual time frame, but I have some idea based on other projects like this. Option 1 will be the more difficult of the two to accomplish because of the fact that we're not adding any new space anywhere and we don't have anywhere to move people into as we do construction on renovation areas. That's a big factor, and it requires many dominoes to be put in effect and completed before the next one is done. That's going to draw out the construction process. I'm estimating option 1 is at least a 2-year process to do that based on a project that I have currently, and it's similar. This one's probably a little bit more complex than that one, so it could be a little bit longer than that. Option 2, I think, is probably 18 months to 2 years, a little bit shorter, depending on how we get things put in place and what we do. The good thing here is that you do have the North Grand property, so we could move people there out of the way temporarily if we had to. And we could do that in a way that it's minimizing costs, so temporary walls and furnishings that we can reuse and things like that. But those factors are there for the time frame. So I think time frame is probably bond referendum is passed. It's going to take us at least 6 to 8 months to get the drawings and specs and everything all done, because we still have to go through the actual design process with the administration, and then put the drawings together and put things out for bid. That takes a month. So 8 to 9 months for that. And then you add on the construction period of 18 months to 2 years. You're probably almost 3 years from bond referendum to seeing anything done. Could be a little bit shorter on one than the other. That answer, hopefully.
One of the other questions I have is you did a cost estimate. What is that what you called it?
Cost opinion is
Cost
what I'm calling it, yeah.
Based on the factors today, materials, how confident are you in that?
Yeah.
That you're within your.
Yep. I should have mentioned this too. I'm sorry I didn't. The district allowed us to hire a professional cost estimator that I worked with on this. I requested that because I usually do a lot of my own estimating, but throughout COVID and now throughout this process with the global turmoil and tariffs and things like that, it has been very difficult to estimate at all. So I wanted that extra layer of help. I have some expertise in our region, particularly in Iowa and surrounding. This firm has more regional approach to looking at it and some global as well. We felt like this estimating effort was a lot like COVID in that you could have a situation where you'd have elongated timelines to get products, some things we wouldn't be able to get. I think today it was announced that China's 35% of what they're exporting today from last year. So we tried to take that into account in two ways. I said that I estimated this using a square foot cost per square foot concept. We elevated those square footage costs by about $10 to $15 a square foot over what I think they are now for two reasons. Number one, the estimate won't be valid until construction starts. So we estimated in 2026 dollars, not 2025. So we elevated that cost a bit there. We also included contingencies on this of 12 to 15%, which seems like a lot, and it is. But we have so little specificity here yet. We haven't gone through all the design that it's appropriate. On $20 million, that's $3 million of contingency alone. So we tried to be conservative here. And the hope is that we can get more done than you're seeing in some of this. I can't say that with a lot of certainty because it's also probably a year away from being bid at least. And then costs will have escalated and we don't know what the world situation is. But we did try to include that to be conservative.
Another question, obviously it's early June, or decides they want to make on it this time of year. What's a typical reverse timeline for us to have a product that we could take to?
Yep. Our normal course of action here is about a 3-month marketing period before a referendum. Since the referendum is only available in November, that gives us July, August, September, maybe August, September, October. So we've got about 3 months there. So if you were going to move forward, you would want to know that right away. So we can start getting that process together. Takes us a little bit of time to change what you see here into something that's more marketable and understandable for the public. So that's kind of the timeline. I think about, we're looking at about 4 months if you told us 1st of July. That's when the end date is. So that's kind of your time frame now. Then your next opportunity is a year from then. And one of the things that has come to our attention, which I'm sure you know about, is legislative issues that are surrounding how funding is going to be passed out in the future. Dr. Byrne, I can talk about this a little bit more.
Right, yeah, so we're in the biennium, so the legislative budgetary changes on taxing, the rollback, the adjustments to the rollback that were proposed. All three of those that were proposed had significant impacts on the ability of a school district to then go to the voters and ask for SAVE funding, or to bond against SAVE funding, to ask for a PEBBLE, or to do a general obligation bond with the voters. The amount was reduced in all three scenarios. And so that did not pass this last year, but they can revisit it right away because it's a biennium, and so they can just pick up that legislation right where it left off. And my concern is that there will be a reform that's done, and most of the calculations that we've seen as administrators don't fully account. When you limit the rollback, they're not asking for the rates to stay quite high enough. They're reducing the rates that we can then ask of voters. And so that's would then impact the amount we could ask for. In some cases, they were actually doing a blackout period. One of the proposals had a blackout period for 5 years on any bond referendums, PEBBLE funds. That was one of the initial ones that they proposed. So I am concerned that that legislative work will pass, and whether, I'm okay if that's good or bad, and that's all fine. But instantly that will affect our ability to bond and to ask the voters to help support some of these renovations. And then I think it's also a little complicated because it would be a gubernatorial period a year from now. If we don't take it forward at this election, the next one will be a gubernatorial election. And I think that always does tend to not favor school issues. The research is pretty clear that There's a lower rate of success in passing on a gubernatorial or presidential election.
And I guess just another question, so if we say, you know, this isn't the right time, or we don't want to do this, what's a rough estimate, cost escalation? If we said we're here.
Yeah, under normal circumstances, it's probably 3 to 5%. I think you have to escalate that a bit, 5 to 8%. Certainly wouldn't be out of the range. I would hope it wouldn't be that much. And that's year over year, so it's compounding.
So we can see $3 to $5 million on some of these higher.
Wouldn't be out of line. I don't know, Dr. Burnett, if you want to talk about financing. Obviously, we've been talking about a bond referendum here, but there are other scenarios, so.
Right, no, and it's funny because Tim Oswald called me right during the start of the committee, during the committee. But from our earlier conversations on the bond, you know, we talked about, if we went out to 2051 actually specifically, if we went that far with our state funds and bonded against it, we had a range of options. And on the lower end of that range, I believe was $12 million. And then we've already spent 4 of that $12 million. So that if we ask for another $8 million towards any project, that would then leave us 800,000 left over to help with the Pebble and existing save fund, or the Pebble funds, voter Pebble and the board approved Pebble, which those two together add up to about 1.1 million. And then this 800,000 would be very similar to what we have right now. Actually, it's about the exact same amount that we have, about 2 million to work with right now. In talking to Jerry, you know, we've last few years spent around 450,000 on high school projects because many of these things needed to get done. And so that expenditure wouldn't be there. The year-to-year expenditure on the high school wouldn't be as significant. So would we need a full 800,000 every year? You know, that's a question for the board to consider. On the high end of the estimate that Piper shared with us, and I put it in the update last Friday too, board members wanted to look at that more closely. But at the high end, you know, we could ask for $18 million, and that would leave us about $450,000 a year to help supplement the 2 Pebble funds. And so that's the high end. And I wouldn't feel comfortable going beyond that. I think that's a pretty small amount that we'd be contributing back towards the Pebble funds. But so those are a range of options, and then Piper could work out scenarios anywhere in between that. And keep in mind, if we're asking for 18 million, we got to subtract the 4 billion out already that we've already allocated. So a range from 8 to 14 million, I think, is something the board could consider. Could that be paired with, you know, phase 2 in some of these scenarios? And then all of a sudden, phase 1 and phase 2 could happen sooner. Certainly, could it buy down, you know, option 2? Those are also options I think the board could consider.
Our input as the design team on that is, obviously, I just talked about escalation. So as much as you can do as soon as you can in this particular period would be good. Because you get more for less money to get it done sooner. That's going to lead to more operational savings and things like that. So there's an exponential sort of benefit there along with that approach. Just takes some crunching numbers.
And during the committee meeting, you know, we brought out a couple of things that we gotta throw that back. But you know, if we combined some of the reductions for option 2 and then phase 2, that total could be around 42.6 million. And then if we, let's say, ask for you know, 13 million bond from SAVE, and then we ask for the community to bring forward $3 million in donation they pledged. Now all of a sudden you're asking for 26.6 million for a bond from the voters. So there's scenarios like that and a variety of, you know, scenarios that we could discuss, where we could definitely lower what we're asking. In that scenario, you get both the auditorium and
all of option 2.
All of option 2 in that scenario. And you'd be asking the voters for 26.6 million. And you would have 450,000 extra dollars a year combined with our 1.1 million from the voter pebble and the board approved pebble.
Our bonding capacity was about 30 million.
On one question, yeah, the bonding capacity was right around $30 million on one question. We wanted to ask two questions, then we could certainly go higher than that. But I think with our last bond not being successful, you know, I would question our going probably too high.
But if you were to ask 30 million, and that would give you the buy down of that 13 million from save could come down to 10 million.
Absolutely. Yep, you could still go up to 30 million. Yep.
If you still have the 3 million in donation.
Yeah. No, and Tim could probably work out a bunch of options for us too, and I can certainly bring him or have him zoom in or on one of the future meetings or wanted to discuss some of that.
Any other questions or for the design team about any of this? I know it's a lot to consider. We tried to give you as much good information as we can throughout the process. I think we've come up with what you asked us for, hopefully, and given you some options that maybe even some that you can get more than you thought you could, depending on, it's a unique situation, right, with the legislation and some of the buy down options and things like that, which seemed like it might be a good idea under the circumstances, but that's sort of up to you. I think at the end of the day, for us to move forward into the bond referendum marketing campaign, you as a board will just need to finalize what you're going to do and then let us know that. I will provide to you a proposal to help you with the bond referendum, should you wish to have our help. And I believe you have a meeting on the 30th as well this month. So you could consider this then. I'm sure Tim could do some scenarios in the meantime that would show several options of that. But if we want to stay on the timeline for November, it would be best if you could act by the end of the month.
Are we making an action item today, or is this simply just a discussion?
You can make an action item today. But you could also, you know, take it and think about it, and we can put it as an action item on the 30th, because we were asking for the 30th to be a meeting. Board members were open-minded to that, so.
We basically tailored this action till that meeting.
I think it's just, if it's just discussion, we don't have to table it. It could just become a line item, an agenda item. So
I didn't beat it to as an action.
guess I could word it as, I'll make a motion to add an, I don't know, add an agenda item.
No,
I think it's just a discussion.
Yeah.
It's
Is there any further questions for the architects or the committee members?
appreciate their work. It's been a lot, so.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Before you run off, I do have a detailed question.
Okay,
We can move on to the last action item, discuss the June 23rd board meeting. It was supposed to be a work session. And
Right, and so it was gonna, the reason we designed the meetings, the work sessions, the way we did was so that we could talk about student data and student performance and have principals report out on their goals. And so I'm still committed to accountability for all the schools and raising student achievement. But with having possibly 3 meetings in 1 month, I wanted to be respectful of the board's time. And we only have 1 meeting in July, so I could certainly add, you know, a half hour, 45 minutes for principal presentations in July, if the board would like. And then we just have 1 meeting in July instead of 3 in June. That was, or if you want, we can have a written summary of the principal's progress, but I prefer to have them come and share what they're doing. There's value in that. So I guess that's my question.
And move everything to the 23rd and have the principals.
do a work session as part of that, or right after that meeting.
To the 30th or
The 23rd, or move the 23rd to the July.
to the July meeting, I believe is the 14th. July 14th, is it okay to move it to the 14th of July?
Or are you saying adding a separate meeting in July?
No, we were just good. Our thought process
Right.
was just a work session
following.
Before,
So you can do a work session on the 14th and then have an actual meeting.
no, we're gonna have the meeting for FEH decisions on the 30th.
Okay.
We've already discussed that, wondering about moving the work session originally scheduled for the 23rd to July 14th. Give principals an opportunity to have this.
And I'm fine either way, because we can certainly get the team together on the 23rd. It's just a lot of meetings for the board in 1 month.
Or are you wondering if we can put it on 30th the same?
Depending on how much time the board would like, yes, you can certainly do that.
So I guess with the June 30th meeting, there's not gonna be a pre-FEH meeting. Just be the standard board meeting.
Right.
And there's not gonna be would there be any additional conversation or work with Pacer?
You could, yes, most likely. We'll have either a Zoom in or some good information from.
That would be within the meeting, not a separate.
It would be another action item, part of the presentation, FEH.
But it's not a separate, we're not planning a separate work session.
No, because this was on the board calendar, the 23rd is a work session. I wanted to bring it to the full board.
So I'm fine moving it to the 30th. Not like that would be a standalone meeting,
The 30th to do both.
It'd be both
a work
meetings.
session and
It'd be both meetings, yeah.
what we're gonna do in July.
Yeah, and we have one in July still, also, but
Just
just
a
working, just regular meeting then.
The regular meeting is 21st, right? Is it 14th?
I had the 14th.
To the 14th, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so
We need a
So I'll make a motion to move the June 23rd workshop to June 30th.
I'll second it.
properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do you just want to give a quick rundown of the board policies that are here? Sure. Mostly second readings or
Yeah.
just the,
Yeah, second readings, and then we just had one change with our 504 coordinator, Susan Johnson volunteered to be our 504 coordinator, expressed that she had both an interest and a passion to help with that. So made that change and added it to the policies, and the rest are second readings. And I believe we're still approving a lot of the legislative changes around gender identity being removed.
take a motion for approval on the readings here.
Make a motion that we approve board policies as presented.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Board comments. A lot going on with the FFA right now. Kids going to Washington Leadership Conference. We have 3 students, all of which are freshmen. There's a lot of little contests going around. I only know because that's the reason we're involved in. Any other comments? Take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.